Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter is Maresha Owiti. Former Devolution Secretary Anne Waiguru is back in the news. Waiguru now says her life is in danger after receiving veiled threats from powerful politicians. She has since written to the police asking for protection. In a shocking affidavit last week, the embattled former CS dragged top Jubilee politicians into the NYS scam. KTN's Dennis Onsarigo begins our coverage tonight.
Anne Waiguru, former cabinet secretary, turned witness, whistleblower, suspect and now possibly victim. Waiguru presided over the powerful devolution and planning ministry and wielded immense political power, now says her life is in danger. In a letter to the Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet, the embattled former cabinet secretary claims she's an exposed person after explosive affidavit linking senior Jubilee coalition figures into the National Youth Service scandal. Waiguru sensationally dragged her former coalition colleagues into the multi-million corruption scandal that now threatened to split the Jubilee coalition government right down the middle. Waiguru had claimed the leader of majority in the National Assembly, Adan Duale, the leader of majority in the Senate, Kipchumba Murkomen, the Deputy President personal assistant, Farouk Kibet, among others, as persons of interest in the National Youth Service scandal where billions of shillings was lost.
At no time did I threaten to intimidate or harass any public officer or civil servant. I am also not aware of any police report that has been filed to indicate that I threatened anyone in the course of executing their duties.
You have touched a live wire. In fact, I will go for Anne Waiguru starting today. I will go on a sabbatical leave from court, from the Kericho by-election, and from the Banindi by-election, and I am ready to deal with one woman who stole millions of shillings.
Anne Waiguru now claims a statement from Duale is a disguised threat on her life. Waiguru is seeking police protection from top politicians she claims are uncomfortable with her damaging affidavit. Waiguru's security detail was withdrawn the day she resigned from her prestigious position in the ministry that enjoyed the attention of State House. The government has not shied away from defending the embattled former CS, twice the highest office in the land, coming to her defense. Anne Waiguru was cleared by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in a move that raised eyebrows. For now, Anne Waiguru claims she's a marked person from individuals she says she once worked for.
God bless you.
Dennis Onsarigo, KTN News.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has yet again changed his mind on the tribunal to investigate corruption allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi. The president initially declined to appoint a tribunal but reversed his decision a day later and appointed a tribunal chaired by Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board Chair Sharad Rao. Has now reversed his decision on the chairmanship of the tribunal. Sharad Rao has been replaced by retired Justice Jonathan Bowen. Have a look, a member of the Justice Tunoi Tribunal.
On the tribunal to investigate corruption allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi, President Uhuru Kenyatta does not seem to get it quite right. In less than 7 days, the president has made a third U-turn on the Justice Tunoi Tribunal. This time, it has to do with the chairmanship of the tribunal. When he appointed the 7-member tribunal on Tuesday last week, he named Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board Chairman Sharad Rao as chairman, with Judge Roslyn Korir, retired Justice Jonathan Bowen Havelock, Judith Abrahams Gusera, James Kabirere Gashoka, Abdi Rashid Abdullahi Hussein, and George Munji Wakuha as members of the tribunal. Now, Uhuru has changed his mind and dropped Sharad Rao from chairing the tribunal. It will now be chaired by retired Justice Jonathan Havelock.
Because there were certain informations that hadn't come through, and when they came through, there was a change, and another person is now chairing that tribunal.
The backpedal by the president comes after questions were raised on Sharad Rao's qualification to chair the tribunal due to his age. The Constitution states that the President shall appoint a tribunal consisting of a chairperson and 3 other members from among persons who hold or have held office as a judge of a superior court or who are qualified to be appointed as such. Sharad Rao has not served as a judge and is 81 years old, above the 70 years qualification age of a judge. Sharad Rao has defended his suitability to chair the Justice Tunoi Tribunal.
And that article makes no mention of age. That article does not require a person to be over 70 or under 70.
Retired Justice Havelock once served as a High Court judge and last year chaired a tribunal to probe Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chairman Mumo Matemu and Vice Chair Irene Keino. On Monday last week, President Uhuru Kenyatta had declined to appoint a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Justice Tunoi, citing a pending judicial consideration on Justice Tunoi's retirement age. A day later, he reversed his decision, suspended Justice Tunoi, and appointed a tribunal after what he termed as further consultations. It remains unclear whether Sharad Rao will serve as a member of the tribunal, and analysts will be watching to see whether his replacement is the last of the president's flip-flopping as the tribunal prepares to get down to work to probe allegations that Justice Tunoi received 200 million shillings from Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero to rule in his favor in an election petition. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
To tonight's episode of our series Ballot Scars. Now remember, you can join the conversation on Twitter on #Ballot Scars. The Internal Displacement Monitoring Center estimates that there were 309,200 internally displaced people in Kenya as of 24th April 2015. The figure includes an additional approximate 50,000 registered IDPs who had fled as a result of the 2007-2008 post-election violence and who at the time had not been resettled. A registration exercise was undertaken in 2007-2008 for the post-election violence IDPs, but the method applied was often inaccurate. As a result, the national database was restricted to the 6,800 households identified and formally recognized by the Ministry of State for Special Programs, the ministry responsible for IDP issues at the time. In the final report of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission of Kenya, TJRC, in 2013, a recommendation was made to audit and register all 2007-8 IDPs not benefiting from government assistance, the so-called integrated IDPs. The recommendations have not been addressed. Well, tonight we meet a man who forms part of these statistics. He lost 9 children and 2 wives at the height of the post-election violence in 2008. At the time, the once quiet and safe Naivasha town turned into his worst nightmare, with people who are baying for his blood and that of his family. It's been 8 years and Bernard Ndege still remembers the day like it was yesterday. KTN's Linda will go to travel to Homa Bay County to meet him and tells the story of a man whose invisible scars are more pronounced than the visible ones.
Mimi sikuzaliwa na hii mwili, hapana, lakini ni moto ya 2A.
Anero andino chenda pi tu samari oginyuka gomogo.
The waters of Lake Victoria in Kendu Bay are now the second home to Bernard Ndege. Waking up at 4 a.m. every day to look for fish has become routine. At times, the harvest has been mean, with the fishermen sharing the catch with the birds. He says it's becoming increasingly difficult to put food on the table as the number of fish in the area dwindles with every passing month. His hands have gotten used to rowing through the waters, but with every row, the scars on his hands are a constant reminder of the invisible scars in his soul. But we will have to wait until we get to his homestead to get to the depths of the pain he has kept for over 8 years. He picks up the basin of fish that he says will not fetch much in the market. He has to hurry back home before the sun gets too hot, because when it does, it burns his skin. It has been long, but the story is still fresh in his mind, how a presidential election and its results crushed him.
Naivasha mimi alienda mwaka wa 78. Nikakaa hapo, na wakati huo wote sisi tulihisi vizuri sana, tukipendana, hakuna Mjaluo, Kikuyu, kabila yoyote. Tarehe 27 Januari 2008 sisi tukaamuka vizuri, alikuwa Jumapili. Tukaamuka mzuri, tukajiandaa vile tutaenda kanisa. Kufika 2:00 hivi polisi akakuja kwa heri ambaye mimi alihisia huko Naivasha. Akasema kwa sababu polisi alisingira Naivasha mzima, wakatawanya wananchi, rudeni kwa nyumba, kwa sababu sisi tumeshachukua jukumu ya kupigana na hawa wajangili. Sisi tukarudi kwa nyumba. Hata mimi pia na watu 19 walirudi kwa nyumba. Alipofika kwa nyumba, bibi yangu mkubwa akasema, mimi aliambia nyinyi hapa Naivasha hakuna kitu ambaye inaweza kufanyika kwa sababu imejaa na polisi. Ikiwa maneno yake yajaishia kwa mdomo, mawe juu ya paa. Pap, sisi tukatoka. Mimi na kijana yangu mkubwa akatoka, akakimbilia kwa gate, akafunga gate. Hawa wajangili wakakuja, wakachukua mawe 9x9, 4x4, wakagonga hiyo gate yetu mpaka gate akafunguka. Alipofunguka hivyo, basi hawa wakasema, we mzee, leo bahati yako hakuna. Mimi nikalia, akasema, eri tuwachie sisi tutoke, tusike, upeleke polisi. Hawa wakasema, hiyo maneno sisi hatukai nayo. Sisi tukaingia kwa nyumba yangu, alikuwa bedroom. Akafunga hiyo jambia ndani, wale pia wakakuja wakafunga ya nje. Sisi tukaingia kwa bedroom. Hawa wakasinguka huko, wakafunja dirisha ya bedroom. Wakaita mwenzake, we lete petrol. Akamwaga petrol ikiwa sisi tunaona. Sisi tukalia. Wakaita mwenzake, we nani, lete tu kibriti. Akawakisha, wakaweka ndani. Nyumba akaanza kuchomeka. Sisi tukatoka kwa bedroom, akarudi kwa sitting room. Nikajaribu kwa mlango, nimekuta imefungwa na nje. Alafu sisi tukaanza kupiga nduru. Wale pia wakapiga nduru nje. Sijui polisi walienda wapi. Mpaka 2:00, mpaka saa hiyo yote mchana kutwa.
That was in 2007 when the disputed presidential election result was announced and chaos broke out in the country.
Unajua wakati huo mimi alinunua mabati kama 60 ya kukuja kujengea hawa manyumba. Alitaka kujenga hii boma yangu sasa hii wakati huo. Na wakati huo mimi alinunua soka. Kulingana na desturi ya Wajaluo, ni lazima iwe na soka ya kujenga naye nyumba. Nafikiria labda mimi alibeba hiyo kwa sababu mlango alikuwa ya bao. Nafikiria mimi aligonga hiyo ikiwa musi imesakwa mingi. Labda mlango ikifungika hivi, ndio mimi nikatoka, nikaangukia hapo nje. Kufikiria tu. Yes, kwa sababu OCPD alisema alikuta mimi ikiwa imelala kama mtu amesaku. Ndio watu wajangili waliona kama huyo labda amesakufa, akawacha mimi. Familia yangu walikuwa watoto 9. Na wabibi wangapi? 2. Watoto walio hai ni 8. Na moja alikuwa kwa tumbo ya mama yake, akabakisha 1 week. Yani kuanzia Monday ya siku hiyo mpaka Saturday or Sunday amepata njia ya kujifungua. Wote walikufa. watu 11 yangu mwenyewe. Mkubwa alikuwa kama mwaka 18 na ya misho alikuwa 1 year and a half.
And so he carried what was left of his wives and children and took them back to his ancestral land. He wanted them to get a befitting burial in their home. He pauses for a while to show us the graves of his entire family. The unmarked and silent graves now smothered by weeds. He says he remembers the day the graves were dug one by one, and the day the bodies of his children, in whom he had so much hope, were buried. One of his wives was 8 months pregnant. She was buried alongside a child he would never get the chance to meet. The events of 2007 did not just rob him of his family, it robbed him of his identity. His scarred face and almost white body a constant reminder of the actions of a group of people who are consumed by hate and in the spur of moment forgot the sanctity of life. He has lost count of the number of times children have run away from him, terrified of his scarred face. He attempted to rebuild his life but quickly came to a dead end again.
So ni vingumu kuishi katika hii dunia kwa sababu mimi kusoma sijasoma. Hakuna mahali unaweza kuandikia mimi afanye kazi yangu ni uvuvi. Na uvuvi lazima nikae kwa jua. So sasa nimeshindwa, nimekaa tu kwa nyumba. Kwa upande ya Mungu nimeanza fresh kwa sababu unajua wakati huo Rege akasema mjumbe yangu Gordon Rege. Yeye ndiye alikuja akasimama hapo. Akiona na macho mpaka yeye akalia. Akamwambia kansila yangu ya wakati huo anaitwa Eno Kagalo. Akamwambia ikiwa Ndege amesapata nafuu lazima utafutie msijana akaa nao kwa sababu ukiwacha yeye na mina hii already anaweza kufa haraka kulingana na mawazo. Unaona na kukumbuka watu yangu, yeye aliona ni vingumu kuishi peke yangu. Wasee wakabaki wakapiga kesi yao, akatafutia mimi msijana anaitwa Ali Sakot kutoka huko Hawasi Nyarkanu. Ndio tulianza naye maisha mpya. Sisi Mwenyezi Mungu alitupatia watoto ngapi? 3. Nilikuwa na furaha, lakini vingumu ni chakula. Kwa upande ya Mungu na maisha, mimi niko sawa kabisa. Kwa sababu nilipata bibi, Mungu akanipatia nini? Watoto. Mtoto yangu mkubwa alienda shule, hata mimi nilikuwa na furaha watoto wakitoka shule yangu pia iko kati yao. Lakini ubaya ni chakula. Kwa sababu serikali alitupa mimi mpaka leo hii. Mpaka huyu bibi pia akatoroka na watoto wote. Hayuko sasa.
The fact that he has been unable to provide for his family reminds him of his house that was burned in Naivasha, along with all his investments.
Over 30 years ago, mali zangu zote vile mimi alizanya huko Naivasha, nikabakia huko Naivasha. Hata boti yangu na neti zangu zote karibu 60 zote ilichomwa. Mimi alibaki uchi. Hata labda wakati mimi alienda na nguo na barangeti ya kulala naye huko. Lakini wakati kurudi, nilirudi uchi. Hata askari ya prison ndiye alipatia open ya kukanyaga muchari. Kuenda kuona watu yangu. Aliona akasema pana mzee, hatuwezi kukanyaga hiyo damu na maji na dudu hizo na migutupu. Chukua hiyo pen. Yeye akalia. Mimi nikaingia hapo na polisi karibu 10. Alipeleka mimi kuona watu yangu mahali hiko. Alipofungua mlango hii na ulinzi ya hiyo muchari, polisi akauliza, utakubali kuona watu yako hapo? Nikasituka, machozi nikatoka, nikasema ikiwa ni hivyo, hata kuna kitu mimi naweza kubaki. Wacha tuende nione watu yangu kwa sababu ni damu yangu mwenyewe.
Promises by the government to compensate victims of the violence have remained just that for him, promises.
Mimi nataka kusitaki serikali ya Kenya kwa kutini ili tudai hizo pesa zangu zote ambaye wamenzangu walipata, zangu iko wapi?
Going back to Naivasha has never been an option. His 90-year-old mother has been his pillar. She was there when he came home with 11 caskets. knowing that he's going back to the place that took her grandchildren would devastate her.
Mambo ya Naivasha misitaki. Misitaki. Atuendi huko. Niende nione nini.
And even as he struggles to provide for himself, he hopes that the net of anger and hatred that engulfed the country in 2007 will never be able to catch anyone else. That one by one, every single Kenyan will embrace the value of life irrespective of tribe. That at no particular time will anyone feel isolated and a prey for anyone. That Kenyans will stop looking over their backs during every election hoping for peace. That ultimately Kenyans will realize that they all belong to one country and peace will reign, just so that no one will have to go through what he has been through. For now, life goes on. He knows he is not the only victim who survived the violence. As a matter of fact, he knows that there are many more who did not live to tell their tale. And indeed, there are many.
A deeply touching and sad story of Bernard Ndege at the shores of Lake Victoria there. Thanks, Linda, for that story. And that is the basis of our big question discussion tonight. We ask you, is Kenya more cohesive today than it was back in 2007? Keep sending your texts on 22155 and on Twitter, the hashtag is ballot scars. You're watching KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. We take a break, after which we come back with more news, including Spotlight 2017. Stay with us. Welcome back to KTN Prime. In just over a week, voters in the county of Kericho will go to the polls to vote in a new senator. The top contenders in the race are Jubilee Alliance Party's Aaron Cheruyot and KANU's Paul Sang. Tonight on Spotlight 2017, KTN's Moremi Mwangi interrogates the politics of the Kericho by-election in relation to the 2017 general election.
I thank you all.
Throughout his 24 years at the helm of the country's top office, retired President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi's Rift Valley backyard was arguably the most tightly knit votes basket, and the Jogoo Party was the unrivaled political wagon of the region. Fast forward to 14 years since Moi's exit from power, and the hotly contested March 7th Kericho senatorial by-election has ferociously cracked open the deep-rooted power struggles in the South Rift and exposed a vicious political outfit which has quietly been mutating in the region, bringing together a host of Jubilee rebels led by Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto, and now this man, Baringo Senator Gideon Moi. This barely 17 months to the August 2017 general election.
Because the eyes are on the prize. And the 2017 election is not the ultimate thing that the duel we are seeing in the Rift Valley is focused on. Actually, all this is in a way focused on the succession politics post Uhuru Kenyatta.
Tarehe 7 mwezi wa 3 tunataka kuambia Kenya ya kwamba Jubilee ndio inataka kuunganisha jamii zote za Kenya, ndio tuweze kujenga taifa ambayo kitafaa kila Mkenya.
But we don't want to be told every day, kaeni hivyo hivyo, ngojeni tuwe rais 2017 na 2022. 2017 nani amekuambia tutakupigia kura? Kwani uko na kura yetu tayari?
The rivalry between the two Rutos was at first widely blamed on a deep political suspicion in Bomet politics, where such Jubilee political heavyweights as National Assembly Deputy Speaker Joyce Laboso and former Konain MP Julius Kipyegon Kones are eyeing the governor's seat. But the humiliating defeat of the Jubilee coalition in the recent Nyangore's civic by-election by the little-known People's Patriotic Party, affiliated to the Bomet governor, has revitalized the supremacy wars between the two Rutos, shockwaves that have now found the perfect landing in the ongoing campaigns in Kericho.
Wants to pick.
But according to political analyst Javas Bigambo, Isaac Ruto may have a bigger ambition up his sleeves, running all the way to 2022.
The Nyangares by-election in the ward, in a way, has fueled the Bomet governor to show that actually, if he tries hard enough, then he could cause a star. And that is what even Gideon Moi is bagging on. That if it was possible in Nyangares, then it's also possible in Kericho.
Mtu anaenda upinzani kwa bahati mbaya. Hawa wengine wanasema tupange tuende upinzani makusudi. Kwani wanaona sisi ni wajinga?
Mimi sijasema mimi nataka kuwa deputy president. Mimi sina haja. Mimi nataka tu kukaa kama governor ama ni retire, I sit on the floor.
Analysts argue that the deputy president is under intense pressure to deliver the Kericho senatorial seat, as a loss to KANU would viciously awaken the Jogoo, in which case all credit would go to Gideon Moi and earn him points to possibly outdo the deputy president as the de facto power broker of the Rift region.
And that itself may just be the door that he needed to venture into the critical mass for his positioning for 2022.
All we are saying is that we want those leaders who made promises to our people to keep their promises.
But keen not to be written off the South Rift equation is the total man Nicholas Kipiator Biwott, a long-serving minister in the KANU administration, whose National Vision Party has sponsored a candidate in the Kericho by-election, former Kipkelian MP Bishop Daniel Tanui. But his campaign has been dwarfed by the fierce face-off between the KANU and Jubilee brigades.
Siasa yako ni ya maendeleo na ufanye kazi pamoja.
The total man, Nicholas Biwott, had his time in the sun, and maybe he seems in a way to forget that the times have changed, the ground has shifted.
In the by-election, 30-year-old Aaron Cheriot of the Jubilee Coalition and KANU's Paul Sang, a former health minister and 2 times Bureti MP, have emerged as the top contenders for the seat which fell vacant following the appointment of former Senator Charles Keter to the cabinet.
Pigia kura Kiptoyot ni kama pia umemwandika kazi yule kijana wako wako kwa nyumba ambaye huwa unamuombea kila siku.
Mimi siendi Senate kufanyia kazi serikali. Hapana. Mimi naenda kuwafanyia kazi.
Back in Kericho, the race between Aaron Cheriot and Paul Sang to get here at the Senate has of course given the greatest opportunity for the Jogoo party to crow yet again. But this time, not without ruffling feathers with the Jubilee coalition that wants to retain its clinch on the votes in the Rift region ahead of the 2017 general election. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to KTN Business News on this last day of February. Of course, as you know, the last day brings in the numbers that deal with inflation. I want to now walk you through how the inflation numbers are looking like on this particular Monday. And the numbers will be with us on the screens in a few. There we have them. And the monthly inflation has actually fallen to 6.84%. compared to what we saw in January, which stood at 7.78%, and the inflation has actually dropped by 0.94 percentage points. This, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, is indicative of the drop in the fuel pump prices as well as the food costs. This technically means that Kenyans will sort of expect to get a lower cost of living in the coming days. Well, let's now bring you up to speed with other stories making headlines in the business world. Well, over 760,000 Barclays Bank customers are at this hour in a state of shock and panic after the bank announced that it will be selling off its Africa subsidiary, even as the bank realigns its business strategy. Barclays PLC is selling off its 62% stake in a move set to change its shareholding in its business. The Kenyan subsidiary was quick to reaffirm that the bank would not be affected in any way. According to Jeremiah Wori, the Barclays CEO, the bank is not shutting down operations.
Our customers' accounts are safe and continue to be not to be impacted in any way by these speculations. I assure you your money is indeed safe and will continue to be with us, and we will provide services the way we have in the past. Barclays Bank of Kenya is not shutting down. And this is very important because assertions have been made that we are closing down our operations here in Kenya. There are no plans at local, regional, or group level to shut down operations in Kenya. The ongoing speculation is related to the shareholding of Barclays Africa Group Limited, the holding company of Barclays Bank of Kenya, and does not in any way impact the day-to-day running of our business here in Kenya.
Well, of course, that's a story that a lot of Kenyans will be looking forward to seeing how it pans out. Of course, tomorrow, the Barclays headquarters in London will actually be issuing a statement regarding the fate of its Africa subsidiary. Do keep it KTN for more. Power generating company KenGen has announced a 5.7 billion shillings profit after tax increase in the 6 months to December 2015. The firm pegs this to increased revenues, which rose to 18.53 billion shillings versus 12.1 billion shillings reported last year. And as KTN's Ashley Mazuru reports, Kenya's cost of power is expected to drop as geothermal, wind and steam projects are expected to boost electricity supply to the national grid.
By all means, it has been a good run for Kenya electricity generating company KenGen, as its recently released half-year results are anything to go by. The firm's half-year profits grew by 0.8 billion shillings, representing a growth of 15%. During the 6 months period, the electricity provider's profits stood at 5.7 billion shillings, driven by increased geothermal generation to 280 megawatts, wind generation and electricity revenues.
So that is showing the impact, the full impact of the geothermal when it's in operation, and perhaps pointing to the fact that as we put in more geothermal, this is the kind of trend that you'd expect to see.
The firm's revenue grew by 52% to stand at 18.5 billion shillings, up from 12.1 billion shillings recorded last year. The firm's revenue grew by 52% to stand at 18.5 billion shillings, up from 12.1 billion shillings recorded last year, while its earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization grew by 76% to stand at 14.2 billion shillings. Despite this, the company's profits were weighed down by high operating and financing costs. Operating costs rose by 24% to 8.7 billion shillings, while finance costs increased to 1.6 billion shillings. Going forward, the company plans on leveraging carbon credits for improved corporate sustainability performance, as it currently owns 80% of carbon assets in Kenya. The firm is looking to float a 28 billion shillings rights issue in June 2016. Ashley Mazuri, KTN Business.
And now, as you know, every Monday we do have our weekly segment known as The Next Frontier. Dairy farmers in Kenya are set to benefit from the commercialization of embryo transfer, a breeding technology that is being introduced by Makongin Farm in Uasin Gishu County. The technology involves harvesting and implanting a developed embryo into a surrogate cow. This is expected to considerably reduce the cost of high-quality dairy heifers, something that will be welcome news for farmers. On this week's episode of The Next Frontier, Philip Keitani walks us through this new technology. Take a look.
Makonge Farm,
Northwest of Eldoret town is an expansive farm nested in Cherangani escarpments with hundreds of exotic Asha and indigenous Borana cows. As one enters the compound, he is met by tens of cows strolling the compound. I am then led to this metallic crush where this cow is confined. And here, Greg Onyango, an embryo transfer specialist, picks this plastic machine that is attached to a computer via code and takes me through what it's meant for.
What you're going to do is, I'm going to do a demonstration of how to do ovum pickup in a cow for in vitro fertilization and embryo transfer.
The process involves monitoring and stimulating a cow's ovulatory process, then removing an egg or eggs from its ovaries and fertilizing them in a laboratory.
Now this cow, in a year, when you breed it naturally through a bull or through artificial insemination, you can only get normally one calf per year.
According to Greg, formerly the egg is harvested from a superior breed animal, fertilized and implanted in an animal not necessarily of high quality breed.
Fertilization and embryo transfer gives you that benefit of getting more offspring from this specific cow.
This ultrasound machine helps one to monitor the dark spots that contain the oocytes or the unfertilized eggs from the superior breeds.
Assuming we take those embryos and transfer them to other cows, now less superior like Boranas. Actually, those are just pedigree Asha embryos which have been transferred or implanted to Borana surrogate cows.
So the harvested oocytes are later taken to the laboratory within the farm in tubes where they are fertilized with the sex semen or conventional ones.
We have these eggs, we select them, select the viable ones, because not all the eggs that you collect will are able to be fertilized and actually become embryos.
According to Ruth, the process must be in tandem with the synchronization of the heat in the surrogate cow to ensure the process is a success.
It's possible for this donor cow to give up to 50 calves in 1 year. This is because you can just produce eggs every 2 weeks from this cow, fertilize them, and then spread them out into different recipients.
Once fertilized, the egg is transferred to the recipient animal, and a pregnancy diagnosis is done after 30 days using the ultrasound machine to know whether the conception happened.
When you use IVF, it means that it's actually a shortcut, as you've said, because you skip all this crossing, all these inseminations until you get the pure ones.
With the embryo transfer technology, one can improve their breeds in a shorter time compared to the use of artificial insemination or bulls. Embryo transfer technology is the ultimate shortcut for any dairy farmer who will love to achieve the pedigree status for his dairy cows in the shortest time possible. Philip KTN for the Next Frontier.
Indeed, interesting insights there on the Next Frontier by Philip Keitani. And that brings us to the end of business news for today. I want to leave you with a look at how the money markets as well as the stock markets have been performing on this Monday. My name is Abi Gina. Thank you for your valid company. Let's link up tomorrow.
And moving on, ice skating and ice hockey are among the sports that are gradually gaining popularity in the country, but the growth has not been as steady as expected due to the lack of training facilities. Robinson Okenya paid a visit to the ice skating instructors in Nairobi and filed the following report.
Winter Games are events that Kenyans follow on international media, mainly because Kenya lies on the equator and does not experience winter. However, the Panari Sky Center ice rink has been offering Kenyans the chance to experience the joy of Winter Games, especially ice skating, for almost a decade, with youngsters being the biggest beneficiaries.
So many people think this is meant for white people. I'm happy that it's catching up. Many people are getting to know the basics, and currently we have a lot of people who know how to do it.
It's just the same, no different ice skating and the roller ones. It's so much fun that you cannot believe it.
Ben Azegere, who won his trade in Norway, feels Kenya has the potential to shine in the sport, but the biggest undoing is the lack of exposure due to the limited number of ice rinks in Africa.
There are very few in the continent, this being one of them in East and Central Africa, so it becomes a challenge to organize a continental event.
Ice hockey is among the games that have been appealing to a number of skaters, and the instructor feels the youngsters have what it takes to join the best ice hockey leagues in the world.
All they need is an opportunity, and we are trying to nurture that talent. They have a lot of potential, so we would love to see in future some of the young talents playing in the NHL.
With the Panari Ice Rink being the only one in East and Central Africa, the country will host an African Skating Championship in July this year for Kenyan teams to test themselves against African opponents.
Ice hockey and ice skating may be one of the sports that are not popular in the country. But with the sport starting to take shape in the country, it is the hope and dream of the kids that are taking part in this competition that one day the NHL may come calling. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
Thank you very much, Kenya, for that report. And to other news now, the Kenya Cup Rugby League, of course, entered week 13 this past weekend with a number of matches, exciting clashes lined up across the country. And let's now have a look at how the standings of the Kenya Cup Rugby League look like after week 13 of action. We have Impala maintaining the lead there with a total of 56 points. We have defending champions KCB climbing up to the second position with 51 points. Kenya Harlequins at the third position, of course, 51 points. Strathmore Leos, who narrowly beat Homeboys 26-25 over the weekend at Impala, of course, right there with 47 points, and Nakuru RFC at 46 points, of course, with all the teams having played 13 matches. And let's now have a look at the mid-table, where Mwamba is at position 6 with 46 points, just 2 points ahead of Cabras. Homeboys, actually, who are the biggest losers of the weekend, having slipped from the 4th position on the log to the 8th position this week. We have Nondis right there coming in at the 9th position with just 24 points. You can actually see the gap right there, 44 points and 24 points for Nondis. The 10th place there, we have, of course, Western Bulls. Western Bulls at the 10th position. And the bottom side of the Kenya Cup standings, we have Black Blood right there with just 19 points. Thika having climbed to 12th position with 6 points. Nairobi University Mean Machine right there, position 13, played 13 matches, won only 1 for a total of 5 matches. And at the bottom right there, we have the Sharks, of course, also having played 13 matches, no win, no draw, and of course at 0 points. And of course, I'm told that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Sports. But be sure to join Moses Wahisi tomorrow for another comprehensive and action-packed bulletin. I'm Lynn Washira. Have a very good night. Ben Kitili, however, will be back shortly to wrap up KTN Prime. Have a good night.
Then let's teach these mosquitoes a lesson, because Mama has Mortein Doom, which makes mosquitoes go away and not come back the whole night. So you get a peaceful night's sleep all night long.
Mortein Doom. A peaceful night is a Mortein Doom night.
So tonight we did report Linda Ogutu's deeply touching story of one Bernard Ndege from the county of Homa Bay who lost his entire family, buried 11 members of his family, lost them in Naivasha, the height of the 2007-2008 post-election violence, and is yet to be compensated despite government assurances every day that all IDPs have been resettled and compensated. On the big question we did ask you, is Kenya more cohesive today than it was back in 2007? Too many of your responses. I'll try to read as many as possible. Frederick Okango on Twitter says, Bernard Ndege lost his wife and kids in PEV and today all the suspects are free. What a country. Agustin on Twitter says, tribal politics is totally unacceptable. I say no, 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 ballot scars. Babaki Adele on Twitter says, it is so sad that we have not learned at all, keeping in mind what happened in Kariobangi today. And One Voice, Sauti Moja on Twitter says, ballot scars is a reminder that we should be one and we should speak with one voice against all those who are out to divide us. And Kendesk says, very, very sad. This is one of the victims that should have enjoyed the fruits of justice from the International Criminal Court. And very quickly, last one here from Daniel Wandolo says, that's a rhetorical question. What would have facilitated that cohesion? Any goodwill shown by the government? Nothing. Robert Wanaina finally says, how can humanity be this heartless, bearing 11 of your kin at a go? I cry for Mr. Ndege. Many thanks for participating in our big question tonight and for joining us on KTN Prime. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the KTN News Center.